Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com, and we're back with this week's new comic book reviews. All right, kids, it's a big week. Lots of books to get to, a lot of new ones. So we're gonna get going here. First up, we have Wondrr Girl #1, written and drawn by Joelle Jones. To say that I was a big fan of her Wonder Woman. Future State book is an understatement. It was by far the best of the bunch. And so when they announced that not only is Flora now named Wondrr Girl coming back, that Joelle Jones is not only writing, but she is drawing it, thankfully. The good thing is you don't have to have read the 2-issue Future State. This book starts on its own. They give you enough. I think what's interesting is how within the story, she there's other elements that are going on, side, I don't want to say side stories, but are leading in. So there's something going on with the mascara. There's something going on with the Greek gods, and all those things are going to converge together, just not quite yet. So we're kind of seeing. So Flora, basically, she's going back to Brazil to kind of find about her culture and heritage. So she's going back as a tourist. She joined like this, kind of what you would consider senior citizen tour. And so but she's going back to kind of learn about, where she's from, because she's never been there. So it's really interesting. There's a lot going on in this first issue. Not a lot of action, a fair amount of exposition, but Jones really balances everything out really, really well here. And I must say, not only is the story great, but her art is just absolutely stunning. It's a really gorgeous book. I love the way she draws her. The color work by Jordi Belair is just really elevates her line work. It's a gorgeous looking book and a damn good story. I cannot recommend this enough. I really, and if you have not read the other two Future State stories, I do recommend, kind of hunting for those, because those are really good too. But I'm really excited about, where she's taken this book. Next up, we have Fantastic Four Life Story #1, written by Mark Russell with artwork by Sean Izaak. As you know, I'm a big Mark Russell fan. I see Russell's name, shut up, take my money. But I really, really enjoyed this, because I'm a really big fan. I love the Fantastic Four, but they've always had a rough go of creative teams that sometimes struggle with the characters. Because really the characters, the book is really about family. And yet, there's the superhero aspect of it. So it's sometimes very hard to balance that. And what Russell's doing here is he's retelling their story, but adding a lot more depth to it. This is basically, the origin of the Fantastic Four, but there's much more that he's lying underwise. He's not changing the story. The story is not changing at all. He's just adding more characterization and more story to what is already there. That's what's make this book really interesting. Now, this first issue is taking place in the 60s. The next issue will take place in the 70s. So he's using what Kirby and Lee did, in creating the Fantastic Four, but is really giving it a heft and richness that was just not there and not able to be there back then. And it really is good. It's really enjoyable. Isaac's artwork is really, really nice. Obviously he wisely doesn't try to, mimic Kirby, which, some artists might have done, considering, this is the 60s, but he keeps it his own style, but he fits it into that period. Like, you feel like it's the 60s, which is not easy to do, especially for modern artists. So I really have to, tip the hat to him on that. I think he did a really, really good job on that. I really enjoyed this, and I'm really excited to see where Russell and Izaak take this book, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, see where they take it. I'm really intrigued. I really enjoy it. I really recommend picking this book up. Next up, we have Red Room #1 by Ed Piskor. So I really have to put a warning in front of this. This book is not for the faint of heart. If you're a fan of Ed Piskor's X-Men book that he did for Marvel. This is not that. This is very, it's dark web, it's torture porn, it's very graphic. And it's not for the faint of heart. I really, just really want to warn people. Now, with that said, I found the book very intriguing, and not in a way that most people think. Now, obviously, there's the whole surface of the dark web, the torture porn aspect of it. And that is, it's, I will even say, it's a very hard pill to swallow. But what I think is really interesting, and what I hope people do understand what he is doing, is there's a lot of subtext about, why people go there, why people do this. He's not trying to justify it or anything like that. I don't want to give people that impression, but I think he's just exploring something that is intriguing, but in a really messed up way. And not only by the end of this issue, they're self-contained stories, but the theme will continue through each one. I think what's very interesting is by the time you get to the end of the story, and also make sure that you read, there's kind of an afterwards by Piskor that kind of explains why he kind of did this as a subject. And I think when you read the story and then you read this, I think you get what he's trying to get at, where he's just exploring something that's uncomfortable, and sometimes that it's uncomfortable to read, but I think it's intriguing for what it is. I really enjoyed his artwork. He's definitely cut from the EC cloth, Wally Wood, Basil Wilmington, and those great artists from that period. And visually, it's in a really messed up way. It's really a good looking book. And once again, visually, even it's very hard to look at sometimes. But I think when you see where what he's trying to say with this, I think it's really, really intriguing. Yes, it's very difficult to read and to look at, but sometimes good things can be uncomfortable. But once again, make sure that you look at the book if possible before you purchase it. This is not for the faint of heart. I really, really, you want to be careful with this. This is not going to be for everyone. Next up, we have the Immortal Hulk Times of Monsters #1, with the first story written by Alex Pendal and artwork by Juan Fiera. And then there's a second story written by David Vaughn with artwork by Kevin Nolan. The first story, in a lot of ways, reminded me of a Swamp Thing story, ironically. It was very intriguing. I will say, I also must say that Yao Ewing is credited with the story with Pandal. The story is actually really intriguing. At first, I don't want to say I was a little lost, but I was kind of like, what's going on here? But slowly you start to learn, it's one of those where it kind of catches you off guard at the beginning, but then slowly starts to feed in what is really going on in the story. And that's what makes it really interesting. I really, it's kind of it's definitely very much a kind of like a Twilight Zone. It's the Hulk, but only in name. It's not really the Hulk. It's, like I said, it's more of a Swamp Thing Hulk. And the one thing that really makes, the story is really good, but Fiera's artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. That first story is really just a good story with really fabulous artwork. It's really good looking. The second story by Vaughn and Nolan, I've said this many times, I'm a huge Kevin Nolan fan. He's just a brilliant artist, and I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves. And it's really great when people hopefully pick this book up and see his artwork and really and see what I've known for like a long time. That he's just an absolutely stunning artist. I really liked Vaughn's story. It was a nice, good short story. It's kind of simple. It's kind of Hulk versus a villain. And like I said, it's pretty basic, but I think that's why it works so well. And then to have a good story, and then have Nolan's artwork just kind of come in and just elevate it to like a whole different level, just like is absolutely amazing. I recommend this. And the good thing is these are standalone stories. If you haven't been reading Hulk, it's perfectly fine. It's just like, these are, they've done a couple of these one special one shots, and this is no different. You can just pick it up and read it. Next up, we have Rangers of the Divide #1, written and drawn by Megan Hong. Ryan at the Comic Shop kind of described it as How to Train Your Dragon, and in some respects it kind of is. It's just that they don't look like classic dragons per se. What it is there's like a ranger station. There's the head ranger, and then there's like these scouts that apparently there's something going on in the world, and they're going to have to leave leave the station. And so what the commander does is he leaves them with a task. They get attacked by a creature, and to see, one, if they can survive, and two, how they actually handle this kind of dangers that they're going to be running into. The story is pretty basic. I think it's decent. Hung's artwork is actually nice. It definitely has an anime feel to it. I think that it was good. It just didn't ultimately like grab me enough to like, I think I'm okay not necessarily reading the second issue. I don't think it's bad. And I think this definitely has an audience. I mean, I would say, for maybe a, young adult, if, kind of if they're into fantasy, it would be fine for them. But I think for a more seasoned reader, I just don't think there was, for me, quite enough there to really give it a really high recommendation. Next up, we have Legends of the Dark Knight #1, written and penciled by Derek Robertson, with Richard P. Clark and Robertson on inks. This goes back, this was kind of a nice surprise. Legends of the Dark Knight was a title that DC did back in it was like the late 80s or in the early 90s. And what it was a anthology where different creators could come in. There would be single issue stories, there would be 2 parts, 3 parts, and it would have varying talent. There was like Matt Wagner, there was Jose Garcia Lopez, there was Stephen Grant and Mike Zeck. There was a lot of people that worked on this book, and it was great because they could do like a 1 issue or a little 3-part story arc, and it would just go on the next creative team. So the DC has brought this back with Robertson, and he might have written something, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But he actually writes a pretty decent story here. Now, it's not, this is not a story that's going to change the world. It's pretty basic. It's got there's a new villain selling a new nerve gas, and he's selling it to the villains in Gotham, and Batman's basically trying to stop him. So the structure is pretty basic, but I think that Robertson does a good job of making a basic story interesting, and that's all you need to do. Of course, it does help when you're using pretty much the best of villains. You've got Mr. Freeze, you've got the Penguin, you've got Joker, and he's just kind of having fun with it. It's once again, it's a simple story, but I'll tell you, his artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, he recently did that Hellblazer book with Tom Taylor. He's been doing Space Bastards over Humanoids. He's a really fantastic artist, and so once again, he writes a decent story, and he just makes it look really good, which just brings the whole package together really nicely. Once again, this book is not going to blow you away, but that's not what he's trying to do. He's just telling a good story with really fantastic artwork, and in that respect, it's a total win on that one. Next up, we have Shang-Chi #1, written by Jean Luen Yang, with artwork by Dyke Ruin. Now, this is kind of this series spins out from, there was a miniseries that came out a few months ago, and it continues that story. Now, if you didn't read the miniseries, there is a little recap at the beginning in text that kind of tells you all you need to know. But basically, Shang-Chi is now running the Asian gang in the city, and so what it is, it looks like that each issue is going to have a different Marvel character. This one has Spider-Man. The next issue looks like it's going to have Captain America. And this kind of hit me the same way that the miniseries did. It was good. I just didn't think it was amazing. I'm all for definitely more diversity in characters, or having different characters, and not even, like smaller characters from like the Marvel universe. I do like it. I think the thing is just like, it's good. It's fine for what it is, but it doesn't, there's nothing overtly compelling me to like continue to pick it up. Now there are going to be people that like it, and that's great, not every book I'm going to like, you like. I think this is just one of those. Yang's story, it's decent. He's trying to find, who's selling the drugs, blah, blah, blah. It's a, pretty basic story, gets the job done. Rin's artwork is nice. I have noticed, and I noticed it in the miniseries, there are times where the backgrounds are just a little on the sparse side. And it's, I think he's a good artist. It just seems like, it seems a little rushed at times, or a little, color. For me, color is not a background. If you're walking in the city, put a couple buildings in there. But overall, it's an okay book. It's not something that's going to, knock your socks off, but it is what it is. Next up, we have Layla Star #2, written by Ram V, with artwork by Felipe Andre. I really, really like this first issue, the first issue of this, and the second issue does a wonderful job of keeping the story going. Basically, Death has been fired from her job because there's a new baby that's going to create immortality for people. So she's screwed. So she weasels her way back. She finds Layla Star, a girl who has killed herself. And so her job now is to try to find this kid. At the time in the first issue, his baby, and kill him, except for she ends up dying. And then the second issue takes place I think 6 or 7, 8 years later. So he's a little boy. So she finds him, loses him, and then she dies again. So it seems to be this is going to be like a reoccurring thing. But I don't know that that's necessarily going to be every single issue. But with that being said, Ram V is really just, the story is really amazing. It's just really, the basic trope and structure is, you kind of read it before, but he's adding such great flavors to this with the religious mythology of India, and things like that. And of course, it's really a wonderful story. And Andre's artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. This is really a good looking book. I mean, there's seeing when she's just talking to a crow. And once again, it's just dialogue, but he is able to capture that and really bring it to life. And it's really smart, and a lot of the book is dialogue, but the artwork is absolutely stunning. So, I really recommend you check this book out. If you've missed it, really, really pick it up. It's really good stuff. Next up, we have Home #2, written by Julio Anta, with artwork by Anna Weischek. I like the first issue. I think there was some really interesting ideas. Obviously, this has the overtones of illegal immigrants and stuff like that. But Anta's mixing it with superheroes. And at the end of the first issue, the boy discovers he blasts his way out of the ice facility, and so he runs off. And so this issue continues that story where he makes it to a local mall, and he's able to call his aunt to come and get him. And then we find out that he is not the first in his family that has powers. It's an interesting story. I think, there's a whole, current events mixed in with superheroes. I think it's an interesting idea. Weischek's artwork is, I like her style, but there's just times where it just feels kind of stiff. Like it's not flowing very well. And I think she's a good artist. It just, especially when there's dialogue, I feel there should be kind of like, I should feel some movement. I will say that I think the second issue is a bit better than the first issue. So I think she's getting better. I just don't know that it's like really hitting me the right way. I like it. It's just not. It's just not hitting me as well as I would have liked. So next up, we have Ultramega #3, written and drawn by James Herron. This has been really interesting because obviously kaijus are the flavor of the moment, especially in comics, and obviously Godzilla versus Kong. But what I think is interesting is how the first issue by Herron, I wasn't particularly overwhelmed because it was kind of like what everybody was doing. Look, here's kaijus, or here's the Ultraman hero. fighting and blah blah. But what he's done in the second and now this third issue is he's actually, yes, it's still, the story is still about kaijus, but it's more about this world that people are living in. And not every kaiju is giant like, Godzilla. And this one is actually interesting because what the kind of smaller kaijus have done is they've created a battle where they've captured humans and they make them fight they have like a small, like a miniature set, and they have to fight their way out of it. It's really interesting, and I really have to applaud Heron for really taking what, for me, the first issue was good and everything, but it was kind of like, okay, I've been here, done this. And what he has really turned around is there's so much great story about this world. And I think that story isn't as told as often in these kaiju comics. And that is really what is setting this particular book apart from everything else. His artwork is just absolutely amazing. There's so much detail and flavor in the artwork that just really just is amazing. And it's just, and it's not, all about battles and stuff. I mean, even during the battles there's a lot of story going on there. And I really enjoy that. He's really proving me it's not exactly what I expect, and each issue continues to do that, where it surprises me. You don't get many surprises in comics today like that, in a story that you think, and that's what's really impressive. Both story and art. I really very much keep checking this book out. Next up, we have Superman Red and Blue #3. So I'll read through. So we have the first story written by Jesse J. Holland with artwork by Laura Braga. The next one is written and drawn by Michael Fife. Then we have Brandon Thomas writing and Barrett Pesmicki as the artwork. Apologies. And then Nick Spencer with Christian Ward. And then the final story, written and drawn by James Stokey. This one was really interesting. This one seemed to me more of like an indie vibe issue, which I actually kind of dug. And it's really kind of interesting. The first story is kind of a humorous one. It's basically Bruce and Diana are waiting at dinner. And so Clark is trying to finish a story and to make it in dinner on time. And that's the basic premise. And the question, and so of course, Bruce and Diana, bet on to see if he'll actually be able to do both. And, and it's interesting because a lot of the story is actually, they talk about, well, Clark would be here except for he's actually saving people. And then after he saves people, he actually, unlike you, Bruce, actually talks to people afterwards. So, kind of Diana's throwing, everybody under the bus, or throwing Bruce under the bus for, being like, oh, I'm the smart one. The next one by Michael Fife is really interesting. It's interesting because it's kind of an action story, but then there actually is kind of a heart to it. I really don't want to give much away, but the villain in is Kilgore, and it's really an intriguing story, and it actually has a nice ending, kind of a sweet story, ironically, with that. Next up, I want to make sure I get this right. The Thomas and Pecks, I'm going to mess this up again. Pecks Miziki. Basically, it's a story about a guy who has been saved multiple times by Superman, and then he ends up, obviously it's that, fate meeting, twist of fate sort of thing, where he ends up one day he can't drive to work, and he ends up going through the park, and he ends up saving Superman. And it's really, really a great story. It is absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that. The next one, Something to Hold On To by Spencer and Ward. It's really a charming story. It's about Superman invites an orphanage to the Fortress of Solitude. and it's really just, it's a sweet story, and then of course there's kind of a bad guy to it, but it's just really a good little story, and of course it has just this charming ending that will just really hit you, and it really hit you in the heart. And it's kind of what I really have been loving about a lot of these stories is, they're kind of, they're not just superhero stories. And I think, Superman's a great character, but I think a lot of people kind of miss that what Superman can be as a character. And I think a lot of these stories really do this. And then finally, Little Star by James Stokey is really just, once again, starts off as one thing and then just turns into this, like, sweet story, and really just is his artwork is just absolutely phenomenal. We know this, but the story is just really, really good. I will say the artwork on all these are really, really good. They're definitely, like, especially the Fife one, is going to be really, it's not mainstream at all. But that's what I love about these books, and that they get creators that are not mainstream, and that it gives, kind of mainstream readers a taste of what, and this is not downplaying mainstream artists. Every artist, works really hard, whether you like their artwork or not. But I like when, like these kind of books get, people who, like they'll read like a Batman Black and White or Superman Red and Blue, and it'll take them out of their comfort zones visually and story wise. And that's what I love about these books. And this one is no exception. This is a really, really wonderful, wonderful issue. Next up, we have Nightwing 80. Written by Tom Taylor with artwork by Bruno Redondo. Saying that I love this book is an understatement. I have totally, thank you, Tom Taylor. Thank you so much. You have made Nightwing well worth reading, and that is no small feat. Nightwing's had Dick Grayson's had a really rough time over the years. He's creative teams there have been ups and downs, but Tom Taylor has really found a perfect marriage of like story and character, and it continues to just this first story arc. It really is. It's about character, and it's about story, and I think that's the big thing that a lot of other creators want to turn it into kind of a Batman book. I don't want another Batman book. I want a different book, and that is what Taylor is doing. And I really, Redondo is just, his artwork is so damn good. I mean, he worked with Taylor on the not the newest one, but the previous Suicide Squad. He's just a really great artist, and he's just really bringing. They are just popping it. I mean, this book, it's a great story. The artwork is fantastic. This is really a good book. You really need to be reading this. It's obviously, and it's selling really well. They're already doing second printings of the first couple issues. This is a really good book. You really need to be jumping onto this book. I'm really enjoying it. Just story and art wise, it's really fabulous. Next up, we have Stray Dogs #4, written by Tony Fleece. With artwork by Trish Forstner. This continues to be like a, Disney meets horror. That's I can't explain any other way. And once again, I'll point out, and this is definitely very much praise on this book, that it's very much like Beast of Burdens in the sense of, it's stories about, dogs, in this case, all dogs, and what it is the dogs are discovering that their new owner is actually a killer. Not only is he killing the owners to get the dogs, and apparently he's now last issue he killed one of the dogs because he found out what was going on. So like, it's funny because it looks like a Disney book, but it's like so messed up at the same time. I really have to give Fleece. This is, it's messed up, but it's like a weirdly charming book, because I think, the biggest thing that he's done is he's really, given the dogs kind of character. And, even though you may not remember their names, you feel each one of the characters. And I think that's a smart thing, to where, the names of the dogs are not so much important, but you get to know the character of the dog, and I think that's the big key of why the story is working so well. Forstner's artwork, once again, I think doing kind of the classic, kind of Disney-ish style of artwork, I think is actually a huge compliment to this book, because when you see, kind of there's the really visually messed up stuff, the horror elements, or even just like the expressions of like, on the dog's face. I mean, she has really done a great job visually on this book, because, once again, dogs don't have the facial expression that humans do. Yet Forstner really is able to capture all of those, emotions within the characters. This has been a really fun book. I can't wait. The next issue is the last one. I can't wait to see how the story ends up. But it's been a really fun ride so far, and hopefully you've been checking it out. Next up, we have Orcs, number 4, written by Christine Larson and drawn by Christine Larson. I'm actually really enjoying this book. I will say this 4th issue is a bit of a middle issue, in the sense of there is story going on, but it's kind of, you're kind of in the middle part of the story, where there's story elements where the story is continuing, but there's not a lot of things. I mean, there's definitely, things going on, but, that will come together as this, story, comes to when it finishes up. Sadly, no squirrels. We always have to point out there are mentions of squirrels. Hopefully the squirrels will come back before the ending. We all love squirrels. But I'm really liking this. This is a good all ages book. But I do think it's one of those where if you haven't gotten onto the book, you might want to wait for the trade, because I think this is going to be one of those stories that's going to work really well reading it in one shot. Although I am enjoying it on the monthly, I just, I kind of want more, and it's like I get to the end of the issue and I'm like, I have to wait, another month. So, but anyways, it's a good all ages book, really good story. I really enjoy her artwork. She really does a bang up job on drawing the characters, and just, it's a lot of fun. I think that's the other thing. The book is just charming and fun, and that's kind of a good thing to have. Next up, we have the final issue of CSRO's number 5, written by Rick Duchek, with artwork by Alex Cormack. This has been a really good messed up book. So the basic premise has been they're finding a wreck that has gold on it, and then basically they run into mermaids and mermaid monsters. So at a point when mermaids, like real, not the Little Mermaid, but real mermaids, they sing, they basically possess people. All the people in the boat start trying to kill each other. This is just the big finale. It's a bloodbath. It's insanity. I don't want to give anything away, but it was a really good read, and I like the fact that it kind of has a truly effed up ending. Like, it ends, but it doesn't really. Like, and that's, it's a good Twilight Zone type story. It tells its story, but it doesn't give you an exact ending. It like leaves you up. It's like, okay, is this going to continue, in the sense of, and I don't want to give anything away, but it was really good. Duex, the story's been really good. Cormac's art is really good, because there's a lot of stuff going on, especially this issue with like the giant monster just eating people, and it's totally visually messed up, but like absolutely and his use of like color has been really good, and he's also used in a lot of ways like good black and white techniques, especially with the underwater sequences, that it's color, but it has that wise black and white technique going. I really enjoy it. The trade's gonna be out probably in a month or two on this one, so obviously if you missed this, check out the trade. I really enjoyed this book. And finally, we have Daredevil number 30, written by Chip Zdarsky, with pencils by Marco Ciccito and Mike Hawthorne, with inks by Ciccito and Adrian Di Badento. I'm really enjoying this. I like the fact that Elektra's being Daredevil, and I think it's interesting because it's obviously hard for her, because she's like, normally I just kill people, but now she's trying to be like Matt, and like, okay, maybe like I should not try to kill people. And also this issue kind of has her training the orphan girl that she's kind of mentoring at this point. We also have Matt, who looked like he was going to die at the end of the issue. Of course, they're not going to kill Matt, but we find out that he now they're trying. Everybody's trying to get him not to serve in jail, and he's like, I still want to serve my 2 years. And everybody's like, dude, I'm going to hit you with a brick. You need to get it together, dude. So there's that whole thing going on. We also have, we also see a new villain come back. Somebody with a certain thing in his forehead. If you can guess it, then you know who it is. I don't want to say it out loud for people who don't. Zdarsky's actually doing a really, really good job on this. We won't talk about the King in Black issues. There's a whole that I'm still bitter about that. But Csiro and Hawthorne, the good thing is didn't see a huge difference in the style of artwork. There wasn't a big change. So that was actually good. So the artwork is still good. Csiro has been the main artist. So hopefully, I don't know if he's leaving the book, but overall it's still a good looking book. Really nice artwork. There's one of the really nice scenes is as when Elektra goes to this, pop-up, party at a abandoned mill, and it's just visually just really beautiful. So I'm enjoying it. I haven't read Daredevil for a long time. I love Daredevil, and I think this is it's Zdarsky's trying something different, and I think that's what's been interesting about this story. So it's so I think it's worth checking out if you haven't been reading it. I think it's worth catching up on, if you're a fan of Daredevil. Okay, that's going to do it for this week. Lots of books to get through. We got through them all. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there, everybody. Once again, public service announcement. I get my books at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach. Ryan runs a great store, and Annie is awesome. Make sure you check out, they do unboxing videos and lots of TikTok videos. You can check out their website. And also their Facebook group page is worth checking out. He runs a really good store, very customer oriented and stuff like that. They also have a sister store, Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team. Another great store in the LA area if you're up in that area. As always, please support your local comic shop. Things are still a little tough out there, but make sure you keep, I know the mask thing is kind of up in the air. I'm going to still continue to wear my mask when I'm out in public. I just feel more comfortable with it, even though I've been vaccinated. The other thing is get vaccinated if you can. We're starting to see things get better, so let's keep that ball rolling. The other thing is to be kind. There's still a lot of sad hate out there, dividing. But we can be better than that. As I've always said, I think people who read comics are kind of, I think we're a bit better crowd for the most part, and let's keep that going. But just be kind to each other and support each other. It's really, really important right now. So anyways, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week. Everybody take care and be safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.